Okay, this is the Brothers on Books podcast, episode 1. This is the first of hopefully many episodes into the future, and we'll be discussing all the books we read. The general format of this, discussion will pretty much be to give an author blurb, and then we'll discuss our thoughts directly after finishing the book, and we'll discuss the characters, our favorite quotes, certain researchable ideas or fact checking that we did throughout the book. If this author mentions any other books within the book, we'll bring those up, and then we'll just sum it up with our main takeaways, and we will tease about the book for next week. And then to finish it off, we will give a song that we think you should add to your reading playlist. And with that, I will turn it over to my brother, Alex.
Thanks, Jack. So to start with, the book that we'll be reading on this is a Thursday, August 6th, 2020. The first book in the inaugural episode of Brothers on Books is a personal favorite of mine, The Richest Man in Babylon. So The Richest Man in Babylon was written by George S. Clason, who happened to be born in Louisiana.
There you go.
He lived in the late 19th century, early 20th century, served in the Army, and he actually started a map company out of Colorado, which ironically went out of business.
Okay.
Which is somewhat ironic considering this book is about personal finance.
Okay.
But the main thing to realize with this book, I love this book. I think, Jack, you would feel the same. But this book was actually not published as one book, but it was published as pamphlets, which is why sometimes it can be somewhat disconjointed when you read it. It was published as pamphlets and handed out to banks and insurance companies to promote, financial intelligence and financial education. So, with all that said, Jack, why don't you start with your thoughts on what you felt and, how you feel about The Richest Man in Babylon?
Upon finishing? Okay. Well, my first thoughts after finishing the book were, this seems very, very simple, and yet why does no one do it? And I think in America, we kind of are based on consumerism, and you kind of get a lot of this life inflation where the more money you make, the more money you spend. And there's a good scene in the book where they kind of, are going around the room, and, the richest man, asks them, how do all of you feel poor at the end of the day? And most people say, yeah, and then he says, well, all of you can't possibly make the same amount. So it's kind of just illustrating that people tend to spend more as they make more. And I guess my other thought was, he tries to make it simple by just saying, part of all you earn is yours to keep. And he kind of says, the 10% of all you earn, you should save. But I guess with like the present day FIRE movement, they would probably say 10% is not very much. And I guess that those were my thoughts.
Yeah. I was for the most part the same. The inflation of lifestyle you talk about, I totally agree with. I've witnessed it amongst some friends, and I've even felt it myself a little bit as my own income increased. I felt like my spending got a little out of hand at times. I agree. The first time I read this, I was like, man, this is so simple yet so powerful. It really made me look and analyze how I was, spending money and saving money. And definitely 10%. I think after I read this, I immediately started depositing probably closer to 30% of what I was making into a Wealthfront account for just automated investments. And
okay.
It's honestly really helped me in my own financial journey.
Very nice.
So I guess I mean,
well, should we kind of I guess set the scene for what this book was? Let's see. So I mean, it kind of starts out. You got these two guys talking. We got Vance here and Kobe, and they're kind of discussing why their, as they say, their purse is always lean. And they bring up one of their childhood friends, Arcad, who is now, the richest man in Babylon. And they're kind of wondering, well, how could he be so rich when he had, a similar upbringing to them? And so, and the richest man he's not the king.
But the king comes to him for money, though.
Right. The king comes to him, and the king also wants him to kind of discuss with the people of Babylon, how they can be rich also, because I think the people of Babylon were becoming a little loose with their money and making poor decisions. So yeah.
If memory serves, I think the problem they were running into was stagnation, and that all the money was falling into the hands of a few select individuals, which sounds, depending on what news you read, that sounds pretty familiar to today's economy. So I mean, I personally felt that my best main takeaways for this were the cures for a lean purse. I don't know if you would agree with that or not.
Yeah, we can go through them.
So I guess just the first cure to a lean purse was pay yourself first. For each 10 pieces you make, use only 9, which, in modern day's terms just means, save 10% of everything you make.
Start thy purse to fattening.
Yeah, and everyone wants a fat purse.
Yeah.
It sounds simple. It does sound very simple. The second cure would be control thy expenditures.
Okay.
And, all he's saying is make a budget.
Yeah.
Budget your money. Don't.
Yeah. I mean, he says, he makes the point that not everyone earns the same, yet all of you who, I'm talking to right now have a lean purse. So understand what your necessities are.
Right. Really, really narrow down on what is important to buy. After that, it becomes a little less simple, but the third cure is to make thy gold multiply.
And put the gold to work. I think he might have said like gold soldiers, like make each of your gold pieces like soldiers that work for you.
See if I can find the quote. That does sound right to me as well.
The fourth one was guard thy treasures from loss, and basically saying like secure, your principal. And I have a quote here that was pretty good. Be not misled by thine own romantic desires to make wealth rapidly. And I think that's kind of just saying like, beware of those get rich quick schemes and be skeptical.
Do due diligence, and sort of goes into a almost a value investing like standpoint of look at the long game, start investing early, and plan for retirement.
And I also had a note written here about the story he gives about the brick maker, where he comes asking him for money to go buy jewels. And I guess the moral of that story is, don't give a brick maker money to go buy jewels. So you need to make sure that the people you're trusting your money with are, experts, I guess, in whatever field they are, and that they have experience in, money making or whatever they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, give a brick maker money to make bricks, not to trade in jewels.
Yeah. Okay, 5. No, you ready to go to 5 or?
Yeah, 5. I think 5 is one that we can both relate to, which is of make of thy dwelling a profitable investment. This term probably wasn't applicable in that time, but something we both, ascribe to is what's currently called house hacking, which is, you buy a house and you rent out the spare bedrooms and you live for free. Have your tenants pay off your mortgage and yeah, I mean, I think we both started doing that before we read this book, but I mean, that is just that has really helped me save a lot of money. I'm assuming it's done the same for you as well.
Yeah, probably the best decision I've made.
Yeah, definitely the best financial decision I've ever made.
And I guess it's also just because the people in Babylon, they were all like, renting from these people that had all the wealth, I guess, and wouldn't, do a little bit more work to get a plot of land and make their own home and, invest in like the land and the area around them also, I guess. Okay. Do you think we got all the points there?
Yeah, I think we got the main points.
Okay.
Rule 6, ensure a future income. I think this kind of goes back to Rule 3, make thy goal multiply, which I took just to mean invest early and often, and plan for retirement. You gotta start squirreling money away.
And it also like you have to be able to do things as you get older, so they have to be activities. Like, I mean, don't just keep on planning on working construction when your body's going to wear out. Like, you need to be able to think about how to transition into getting older where you're not going to be able to use your body forever.
That was especially true in Babylon, when I think a lot of the work was probably hard manual labor. I mean, there's still a lot of people who work in hard manual labor, and you gotta plan. You can't be breaking rocks and putting on roofs when you're 70.
But you could think about how to own the roofing business,
You could start a roofing company, start a masonry company, start a landscaping company.
Yeah. Okay, and then to finish it off on the 7 cures for a lean purse, we have increased thy ability to earn. And I based my main notes here were just like study to become wiser. There is abundance for all.
Yeah, I had invest in yourself, continue to learn.
Yeah,
which is something every day I like to set aside at least an hour just to read. Just always keep learning, and if you just keep learning, you'll always increase your ability to earn.
And it's it's exponential too, because as you learn more, then you can make more connections with other parts of your learning, or make connections between, like, I don't know, things you're doing in music versus like things you're making in the yard during like construction activities or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. I personally felt like this was the most important rule. Always keep learning.
Okay. Well, where shall we go from this? Should we meet the goddess of good luck?
I like the goddess of good luck.
I like the goddess of good luck too.
Yeah.
So who is the goddess of good luck? I guess my main takeaways are basically procrastination crushes most people, and they kind of talked about a story where this guy deep down knew he was getting a good deal to buy, I think it was sheep or a flock of something, and like
flock of sheep.
Yeah, and it was like dark outside, so he couldn't like count them all, but the story that he was told seemed to check out, and like I guess he was describing he knew it was a good deal, but just kind of seized up and didn't do it, and then of course he lost out on the opportunity.
You gotta pull the trigger.
Yeah.
If you don't shoot, you can't score.
Yeah.
The Goddess of Good Luck had a great quote as too. I believe it was. Let me see if I can find it. Men of action are favored by the Goddess of Good Luck.
Oh yeah, that was the quote that ended
the quote. Yeah,
ended the chapter. Yeah.
Just I guess just a personal anecdote into that, that story. I mean, I was looking. I think we had been talking about buying, gold and silver for probably a couple months, and I think when we started talking about it, silver was priced around $14 an ounce, and I kept saying I wanted to do it, and I wasn't doing it, and I waited, and I think I finally bought it when gold or silver was at about $18 an ounce. I eventually did do it, but I lost out on $4 an ounce, and I think now it's around 25. So I have done pretty well, but I guess the point of that story is better late than never, but you shouldn't procrastinate in the first point.
Yeah, and I think part of it is you also, the more you like study and the more wisdom you get, I guess the easier you would be able to identify a good opportunity when it came across. Because I mean, a lot of people, if they run the numbers on like a rental property, it's not going to be obvious right away if it's a good deal, but the more you do, the more you look at, then you'll be able to identify good deals and you'll know it right away. So
absolutely.
I guess, yeah. So I think are we good with the Goddess of Good Luck?
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, my main takeaway was just the goddess favors actionable men.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to be actionable, especially if you've never done something before. It's scary, but once you start doing it a little bit, it doesn't really become that scary anymore. Like, I think especially with money, people I think are scared to invest. I don't know if you would agree the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there was actually a line that said just one needs to begin.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. Well, chapter 5 was the 5 laws of gold, but I guess we talked about a lot of it, but I guess, well, did you have anything you wanted to bring up on that one?
I mean, the five laws of gold, I felt like was a retelling of the 7 rules to cure a lean purse. That was kind of what I got from it. I felt like it was I almost felt like it was unneeded.
The only added part I thought that was good was there was a dialogue where basically they were saying, well, if I offered you like a bag of gold or some clay tablets of wisdom, which one would you take? And most people were just jumping at the gold. Most people want the short-term fix, the short-term gratification, whereas really what people should be going after is the wisdom, which will probably pay off in multiples later on. Because if you don't have the wisdom, you're probably not going to be able to keep the gold, and that would violate one of the 7 laws of a lean purse, which is guard thy treasures from loss.
I think that anecdote for the most part also taught that if you just have gold, it doesn't really teach you how to make more gold. But with the wisdom, if you don't have the wisdom, not only will you lose the gold, but with the wisdom, you can go from nothing to having the gold. Mm-hmm. And that story, I don't exactly. That story sort of highlighted that because it's a son who takes gold from his father, and then he goes off in these endeavors, and he proceeds to lose all the gold. He gets cheated, he gets robbed, and then over the course of like the next 5 to 10 years, and at one point he's sold into slavery, and then he eventually, using the wisdom that his father gave him on these tablets, is able to get out of slavery and then proceed to make all of the money that he had stolen from him and cheated out of him, plus 2 additional bags of gold.
Uh-huh.
So the story ends with he gives his father back 1 bag of gold as the principal investment, and then he gives him back 2 bags of gold for the tablets. And he says, this proves that the tablets are worth more than the gold.
Oh yeah, that was a good story. Yeah. And I guess I had one other note on that section that says, there was a part that said most choose the gold because they are hungry and desperate. And I think you can kind of see that. I don't want to get in trouble, but like a lot of people right now, like they really, they want the stimulus checks. Maybe instead of understanding what maybe needs to be fixed or what do they need to change so they're not in that situation again. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I would probably agree with that. But there is nothing to say that you can't have both.
Yeah. Yeah.
What we're
Okay.
currently going with.
So you want to go on to chapter 6?
Chapter 6 is the
Right.
gold.
Well, actually, I don't know if it's the Gold Lender of Babylon. That's the next one I have.
Yeah, that's what
notes
I have
on at least. So yeah, I mean, like you said, like a lot of these chapters are kind of disjointed, and you can tell because each chapter is kind of like a different illustration of some sort of wisdom. And in this story, we're dealing with a ox and a donkey. And I think the ox is working like tons and tons, and the donkey tries to relay to the ox how not to work. And what happens is I think the ox plays sick, and then the farmer gets the donkey to do all the work, basically doing the ox's job. And there was a quote in there, if you desire to help a friend, do so in a way that will not bring thy friend's burden upon thyself. And I mean, so like, I think that they were also describing like, lending money to family members in this a little bit.
Yeah, they were talking about a brother who loved his sister, and the sister wanted the brother to lend her husband 50 gold pieces to start a merchant company. And the brother of this in this chapter is talking to this gold lender because he's got 50 gold pieces, and the gold lender asks him how much he makes in a year, and he says he makes about 1 gold piece a year.
Mm-hmm.
And the gold lender responds, so your sister wants you to give her husband 50 years worth of work so he can be a merchant. And then the gold lender just sort of asks him, I mean, this kind of, I think, plays into, I mean, I guess your line of work and some actuarial stuff and some underwriting. Like, is your brother-in-law a merchant? Has he been a merchant before? Is he good with money? Like, what are his qualifications to be a merchant? And the brother, he responds to all these questions, and he realizes that he really shouldn't lend his brother-in-law 50 gold pieces because, his brother-in-law has never done anything like this, and he shouldn't, squander his entire life savings to please his sister.
Yeah, he doesn't want to end up being the donkey in the story.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think if memory serves, at the end he gives him, I think, 1 or 2 gold pieces to help him get a start. Just, sort of something that he could potentially pay back if his endeavor into being a merchant was a failure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably good for everyone to make sure you don't
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he was to like insure against the principal. He was basically having the people who he lent to give them some sort of important like token, right? Like some
Yeah,
sort of sentimental value.
value, right?
Yeah.
Or actually just something with a financial value. I think he
Yeah.
talks a lot about taking jewelry or gold or deeds to land,
Mm-hmm.
which actually have value that outstrips the actual loan, which is consistent with today's banking practices when they ask for an income statement or a net worth.
Yeah, that chapter ended with the quote, better a little caution than a great regret. Okay.
That is good.
So the next chapter I mean they kind of just talk, it's called Walls of Babylon. It's a short excerpt about just like this army that's like bearing down on their city, right? And they I guess they talked about like this wall in Babylon was just massive. And I forgot. Do you remember? I don't really remember the dimension. Like I thought they said like
I don't think they
crazy.
said the dimensions. If they did, I mean, I definitely feel like this this chapter was sort of out of place.
Yeah, yeah,
Didn't really need this one, but uh, and I didn't even really feel like the moral of the story was that great. I mean,
yeah. I mean, it said we cannot afford to be without adequate protection, and I guess yeah, I don't exactly.
I mean, what I'm generally feeling he's trying to say is that you have to protect yourself. Uh, I mean, I would almost think that this is like about being diversified. Like you have to protect
Yeah,
yourself from like losses, right? Is
yeah,
that sort of what?
I would say like if you're getting cracked from one angle, like you need to be able to survive another way, or you need to be able to be strong enough to weather some storm. And yeah, a lot of ways is being diversified in either your skill sets or your income
Income
streams,
streams, yeah.
number of income streams, or yeah,
Because yeah, I mean, it's usually true if you can survive a storm, you usually can survive.
yeah. So I think
I
I mean
think yeah, I mean that's really all I needed to say on
yeah,
that one.
that chapter was not great, but it wasn't very long either. So I think the next one up is the camel
Camel
trader of
Trader,
Babylon.
yeah.
Yeah, and this is let's see. So this is about Dabasir, and he used to be a slave in Syria. Um,
Well,
and
it started with he
well,
was a wealthy man.
yeah,
He
his
was
father
the
was wealthy.
son was wealthy, right?
Yeah, yeah, his father was
And
wealthy,
then
right?
and then he had some he wasn't following rule two of keeping a lean purse, and that he had some he was not controlling his expenditures, and he racked up some pretty serious debt. And instead of trying to pay off his debt, he ran away.
Yeah, he started stealing from caravans going through the desert, I think, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this eventually led to him becoming a slave. So things had not become good for him.
Right.
Uh, I mean, do you want to take it away, or you want?
So I guess I'll say there's a great illustration they do in this part, and actually had my like favorite set of quotes where he kind of talks about seeing the world one way and then kind of all of a sudden seeing it in a different way, and they talk about this person looking through like kind of like a blurry stone. But like if you had a blurry stone window and you're looking out at the house and you know what the outside looks like, but when you look through the blurry stone, it's not looking the same way as what reality is. And the point was that some people see the world like that already, and they don't really get to see reality right away, and they sometimes aren't even looking for it. But let's see here. So he's kind of talking about, I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but he's kind of talking about how he comes to see how the world actually is while he's like wandering, I guess, the desert. Or so here I'll just read some of these quotes. I looked across into the uninviting distance, and once again came to me the question, have I the soul of a slave or the soul of a free man? Then, with clearness, I realized that if I had the soul of a slave, I should give up, lie down in the desert, and die, a fitting end for a runaway slave. So that's when he's kind of, thinking about whether to give up. And then all of a sudden he talks about that he's, seeing the world differently. And he says, I staggered weakly to my feet. What mattered hunger? What mattered thirst? They were but incidents on the road to Babylon. Within me surged the soul of a free man going back to conquer his enemies and reward his friends. I thrilled with the great resolve. And then my very favorite quote, I think, maybe from the book, goes like this. We found the trail to Babylon because the soul of a free man looks at life as a series of problems to be solved and solves them, while the soul of a slave whines, what can I do? Who am but a slave? So that's kind of like that, I guess, victim mentality,
Yeah, definitely.
Talking about that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would agree. I mean, part of my favorite part of this chapter is how when he's in, he's a slave, he sort of like what you were saying, when his sort of his outlook on life changed, he starts referring to his debts as his enemies.
Uh-huh.
And how his mentality goes from, instead of, running from his enemies, he's going to, triumphantly march back into Babylon to crush his enemies, to pay back, the money he owes, his friends that he's taken money from, that he just sort of ran away from because he was, for all intents and purposes, I think he was probably embarrassed that he couldn't pay it back, or that he just got over his head. And then probably for like the chapter ending quotes, this one ended with where the determination is, the way can be found, which I really liked, just sort of to me saying that, if you will it, you can do it. If you're willing to try hard enough, you can be successful, which I think that's a good mentality to have in just in all facets of life.
It's a good one.
Yeah. So the next chapter was the clay tablets from Babylon, and this is kind of like definitely another funny chapter that's told in a very different format, where it's told from the perspective of archaeologists who find these clay tablets and they're translating them. And the translations from the clay tablets are almost how the tablets are saying how to get out of debt. And it gives I
actually didn't even remember this chapter existed.
Yeah, it gives a highlight of how you should get out of debt, which I think if may be a little simplified from what some people are doing, but the generic breakdown that he gives on how to get out of debt is, of your paycheck, you should take 70%, and you should live off 70%. Of the remaining 30%, you should take 20% of that, and you should pay off your debtors equally.
Okay.
I don't know if that's. Would you agree with that?
I think the thing that was a little different I can't remember. Did he say, because he basically said you should still be saving that 10%, right? For
Right.
yourself.
He said you should, and that was the remaining 10%. Is that
Yeah.
you still pay yourself the 10% first,
Yeah. And I
and then
think
you
just the, link it like the Dave Ramsey followers of the world,
right. Yeah.
they always set up that emergency
Emergency
fund
fund. Right.
first instead of paying off the debt, because if you have no cash, then you're probably going to go back into debt and you'll get frustrated. So it's a psychological thing maybe to save regardless of how much in debt you're in, so you can build up that cash in that emergency fund.
Right. And they talk about that, how they feel good about how not only are they, paying down their debt, but they're getting a little bit of that gold jingle in their pocket.
Oh, that gold jingle.
That gold jingle, yeah. Uh, which is, I think everyone can relate to liking that.
Yeah, cash is king.
Cash is king. Um,
I don't really have too much to add on this chapter.
yeah, I mean,
I
it
would
was
say I don't.
it was sort of I think for what it said, it was it was kind of a long chapter. I think for what it was saying, but still I think a good solid philosophy. I don't know. Like, should you, if you have different debts with different interest rates, should you pay them down equally, or
I mean, theoretically, you should be paying off the one with the highest interest rate.
interest
But I
rate? Yeah,
think, I mean, if you're following like the Dave Ramsey, I guess, framework, there is a psychological component to it, and he basically talks about this. I think he calls it the snowball formula or method, and it's basically to build momentum. Like think of a snowball rolling, down a hill, and it's getting bigger and bigger. So you pay off the Dave if you're following the Dave Ramsey method, you pay off the smallest like nominal amount. So even if it's at a much lower interest rate, just to build momentum, and you can kind of see like you hitting like a goal, and then you um, like even though mathematically it doesn't make the most sense, but there's a psychological component to it.
yeah, yeah. That is not what I would do, but that's good to know that that's what he preaches.
Yeah,
Uh, I think that brings us to the last chapter, correct?
I think so. Is that the luckiest man in Babylon?
Luckiest man.
Ah, I had I had two notes on this chapter, and they are here. I'll just say them, and then we can talk about them. So my first one was work is thy best friend, and work will set you free.
Yeah, work will set you free is what I really took away from this one as well.
Yeah.
You want to give a
I mean, he talks. I don't exactly remember what. I think it's like the slave who's like making cakes or something, right? And then his he basically goes to his owner and says, "Well, I'm good at making cakes. Can I, go, take these cakes to the market? And I'll give you a cut, but please let me keep a little bit myself." And he gets really good, and I think he ends up seeing one of his old slave buddies doing something similar, and he talks about how the guy's hands are very like worn down, but he has like happiness in his eyes. I think that I might be getting a little wrong, but
Yeah, so it starts off with I think a group of four slaves being marched into Babylon,
uh,
uh, where we have I don't remember our name, but our main character, and then he's being, all three slaves are giving him advice, and the first slave says you should always shirk work, don't work hard. You're a
yeah,
slave, you should
yeah,
just not work hard.
yeah.
The second slave is a guy called Pirate, who is just Pirate's name I remember because it's Pirate.
Okay.
Uh, Pirate is just he won't talk. He just is always sort of disagreeable, and he's hard to deal with. Very almost confrontational. And then the last slave is a guy who tells him, you should love work, make work your friend, always work hard. And when you go to market, when you're going to be sold, you should definitely tell the masters that you want to work hard. Because if the people that have the first option to buy you think you're going to work hard, they'll buy you. And the people that are going to buy you there are much better masters than the city, who's going to have you hauling bricks to build the walls of Babylon. So he's sold to, as you alluded to, his master, who he then is able to be a little entrepreneurial and make these cakes. And as he's out in the city selling these cakes, he first hears of a slave who, escaped from being a slave and killed the guard. And when they caught him, they, flogged him and skinned him. And it turns out that slave was pirate.
Okay.
And then he sees the second slave who told him he should shirk work. And he sees this slave at the walls of Babylon, and he's got a hunched over back. He can barely walk because he's been carrying bricks so much. He's pretty much been broken. And then finally, as the end of the point, as you allude to, he ran into the last slave who said, you should make work your friend. And he has now also become very entrepreneurial. And I think he actually had bought, I think his friend, the friend had bought his own freedom from the money he had made through his own endeavors. To become the luckiest man in Babylon.
There we go. That is all she wrote, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just, you have any general feelings? I guess.
I mean, it's a classic for sure. It's a quick read. It doesn't take long to get through. And I remember the first time I read it, like 2 years ago, I got through it really quick. This time when I was rereading it, I didn't get through it so quick just because it wasn't as new. But just the way it's written is very fun. And I think you remember a lot of the lessons because of the way he creates the stories and kind of shows you instead of just tells you like out of a textbook.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the stories are sort of fun. They, for the most part, provide a great learning point. Really teach you. I honestly think all high school students should read it. I don't think that's happening anytime soon, though. But yeah, I mean, I sort of felt the same way. The first time I read it, I was like, oh my God, this is great. And then this last time when we reread it for the show, I didn't read it as quick, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, so I guess that wraps up The Richest Man in Babylon. What do we got in the pipeline, Al?
Yeah, I guess so for all our followers, if you want to take a guess, I will say the teaser for our next book is just Be Fearless.
Be Fearless. Okay.
Be Fearless. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And I guess we'll say goodbye as we listen. And like I said, we're going to be wrapping up each episode with just a song that we found like while we're studying or reading on YouTube. And we're going to just pick a song that most of them don't have lyrics, something you could listen to while you're reading or studying. And we will sign off. And this is Tom Dooley, Rain on Sunday. Goodbye.